Have you ever felt like the whole world is pressing your buttons on purpose just to watch you break? Like no matter how hard you try to stay composed, someone always finds a way to poke at your peace just to see if you'll crack? It's exhausting. The noise, the criticism, the subtle jabs, the loud opinions, the pressure to react. It can feel like you're standing in the middle of a storm with no shelter in sight, and somehow you're expected to stay calm through it all. But what if you could? What if you didn't have to fight back or prove your point or waste energy trying to win battles that only drain your soul? What if your calmness could become your greatest power? Not the kind of fake calm where you're boiling on the inside but smiling on the outside. No. A deep, unshakable stillness that doesn't collapse when pushed, doesn't flinch when challenged, and doesn't react when provoked. A calm that comes from real inner strength, the kind no one can take from you. This world is loud, and most people are just echoing the chaos around them. They yell when others yell. They break when others push. They let the world dictate their emotional state. But you don't have to live like that. You don't have to be a prisoner of what others say or do. The truth is, staying calm when everyone tries to trigger you is not weakness. It's mastery. It's self-respect. It's choosing your peace over their poison. People will always try to get a reaction out of you. Some do it consciously, some don't even realize they're doing it, but your peace doesn't belong to them. It's not theirs to mess with. Every time you take the bait, you hand over your power. You tell them they control you, but when you stay still, when you hold your center, you become untouchable. You stop playing their game. You rise above it. Imagine walking through chaos and not being shaken. Imagine hearing words meant to cut and they don't even scratch. Imagine watching the drama unfold around you and knowing it's not your fire to put out. That's freedom. That's strength. That's what this is about. You're not here to win arguments or prove your worth to people who don't even see it. You're here to protect your peace, to grow your power, to stand so steady that the storm passes through you without leaving a mark. And if you stay with this message, if you commit to learning how to remain calm when the world wants you to lose control, you'll become a version of yourself that's no longer breakable. You'll stop reacting and start responding. You'll move from emotional chaos to emotional clarity, from triggered to untouchable. Because calm isn't passive, it's powerful. And the moment you realize that, you'll never let anyone steal it from you again. Stay till the end. Because the calm you seek is already inside you. Let's unlock it. Most people who try to trigger you aren't attacking you. They're projecting themselves onto you. Their fears, their jealousy, their shame, their broken confidence, it leaks out through their words and behavior. When someone insults you for no reason, when they mock your peace, when they push your boundaries, it's rarely about who you are. It's about who they are when they're with you. And the moment you internalize their pain as your own, you become a part of their emotional chaos. But you're not responsible for their inner world. You're responsible for protecting your own. People will provoke you to pull you down to their level, because it makes them feel powerful. They don't know how to regulate their own emotions, so they try to manipulate yours. They poke because they want to see you flinch. They insult because they want to feel superior. They create conflict because peace terrifies them. But what they really fear is your calmness, because calmness is clarity, and clarity exposes manipulation. It reveals the truth. That's why staying calm isn't just emotional control. It's spiritual strength. It's refusing to play a game you've already outgrown. When someone tries to trigger you, it's a test of who you are, not who they think you are, not who your past says you are, who you choose to be now. Your response isn't about pleasing anyone. It's about protecting your peace and choosing not to carry the weight of someone else's dysfunction. You can't walk in confidence and keep picking up insecurity from everyone who throws it at you. You can't rise if you keep bending to every insult, every glare, every sarcastic word. Your power lies in detachment, not cold indifference, but grounded wisdom. The kind that says, I see what you're doing, but I refuse to be moved by it. Every time you stay calm, you're breaking a pattern. You're saying no to your past reactions. You're reclaiming your energy. You're proving to yourself that you are not a puppet on someone else's emotional strings. You are in control. You get to choose who affects your state of mind. You decide when to engage and when to walk away. That's real freedom. That's emotional maturity. That's power. And even when the provocation feels personal, remember this. It only stings because it touches a part of you that still needs healing. The trigger isn't the enemy, it's a signpost. It shows you where your power is leaking, where your wounds are still open. But once you see it, you can rise above it. You can turn the moment into mastery. Not through reaction, but through stillness. Through owning your breath. Through choosing silence over drama. Presence over panic. Grace over ego. They can provoke, they can test. but they can't control you unless you let them. Stay calm, not because they deserve your peace, but because you do. You fought too hard to build this version of yourself. Don't let anyone pull you back into a version you've already outgrown. Staying calm is not about pretending nothing affects you. It's about learning how to feel everything fully without being ruled by it. Your emotions are valid. Anger, frustration, sadness, they all have a place. But they are not meant to drive the car. They are signals, not commands. When someone tries to trigger you, it's easy to let those emotions take the wheel, to let your nervous system explode in defense. But true strength is in the ability to feel the fire rise and still choose stillness. Not because you're suppressing anything, but because you're mastering it. That's the difference between reaction and power. The brain is wired for survival. It wants to defend, attack, protect. But your mind isn't just a product of biology. It's a weapon you can train. Every time you pause, breathe, and choose not to react, you rewire your brain. You interrupt the automatic loop. You take back your authority. The first few times might feel unnatural, like holding back a wave that wants to crash. But over time, that pause becomes easier. That choice becomes your new normal. Because peace, like anything else, is a habit. And inside that pause, inside those few seconds before you respond, you'll find something most people never experience: freedom. Not freedom from people or situations or even pain, freedom from being controlled by them. That's where your power multiplies. You stop being emotionally hijacked. You stop letting other people program your reactions. You become the author of your response, not a slave to impulse. Calmness isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's emotional intelligence in action. It's realizing that reacting to every insult, every jab, every glance is giving away pieces of yourself to people who haven't earned them. They want your energy. They want your attention. They want to see you flinch because it means they've succeeded in pulling you out of your power. But when you stay calm, you protect your energy. You become unpredictable, unreachable, unshakable. You'll notice the world treats you differently when you stop overreacting. Your presence changes. You radiate a silent authority that doesn't need to prove anything. You speak less, but your words carry more weight. You engage less, but your impact becomes deeper, because your calmness is not just silence, it's strength. It's the result of discipline, of inner alignment, of no longer needing the outside world to validate your emotions. So the next time you feel yourself tightening up, ready to react, remember this: calm is not the absence of feeling, it's the presence of mastery. You are allowed to feel everything, but you are not required to lose yourself in it. Breathe, pause, reclaim the moment, because the real battle isn't what they say, it's whether you let it control you. And you have come too far, learned too much, and healed too deeply to give that control away. Let them try, let them push, but let your calm be louder than their chaos. That's your power. Own it. Not everything that triggers you is meant to harm you. Sometimes it's a reflection of something inside you that still needs your attention. Triggers are not always attacks. They're messengers. They reveal the parts of you that are still raw, still open, still healing. When someone's words cut deeper than they should, it's not just about what they said. It's about what inside you agreed with it. That's where your real work begins. Because if you don't understand your triggers, you'll spend your life blaming the world for reactions that belong to you. You can't always stop people from saying the wrong things, but you can take away their power by doing the inner work. The more healed you are, the less reactive you become. The less approval you need, the more confident you stand. The less pain you carry, the less their words can penetrate. It's not about building walls. It's about building strength, real strength, the kind that doesn't need to defend itself because it no longer feels threatened. Your emotions are a map, and every time you're triggered, the map is pointing to something you haven't resolved. Instead of running from it, face it. Ask yourself, why did that bother me? What story am I still believing about myself that made those words feel true? What part of me still feels unseen, unloved, or unworthy? Those answers are your liberation. Because once you heal the source, the trigger disappears. Not because people have changed, but because you have. Healing is not soft. It's not passive. It takes courage to face the parts of yourself you've tried to ignore. But that courage is what sets you free. When you begin to understand your triggers, you stop fearing them. You stop giving your power to people who know how to press the wounds you refuse to tend to. And the more you heal, the calmer you become. Not just on the outside, but deep in your core. It becomes who you are, not just how you act. So when someone tries to provoke you and you feel the fire rise, don't suppress it. Observe it. That feeling is a signal, a lesson, a doorway. The more you train yourself to pause and listen, the more control you gain over how you move through life. You begin to realize that calmness isn't pretending to be unaffected. It's being so in tune with yourself that nothing outside you has the power to destroy your peace. Your triggers are your teachers. Let them teach you where you still need to grow. Let them show you where you still carry pain that you no longer need to hold. And every time you face one, you rise. You become more stable, more grounded, more powerful. Until one day, what used to shake you no longer moves you. Not because you've hardened, but because you've healed. And in that healing, you discover a calm that no one can take. A calm that becomes who you are. There is a moment, small, silent, and powerful, that exists between what someone does to you and how you choose to respond. That moment is your power. It's where everything can change. Most people miss it. They get hit with a comment, an insult, a stare, and they react instantly. Their emotions take over, their pride rushes forward, their mind starts spinning. But if you can catch that pause, even for a few seconds, you gain something most people never do. Control. Control over your words. Control over your energy. Control over your life. In that pause, you aren't ignoring what happened. You're choosing not to let it master you. You're creating space for wisdom to speak before your emotions scream. And that space, that tiny window, is where peace lives. It's where strength grows. It's where you shift from being someone who is easily provoked into someone who is deeply rooted. Because true power isn't explosive. It's grounded, it's stable, it doesn't panic, it doesn't chase, it doesn't need to react. It understands that not every battle is worth your energy. When you react impulsively, you give away your peace. You let someone else decide your emotional state. But when you respond from that pause, you keep your dignity intact. You walk away without guilt, without regret, without carrying the weight of someone else's behavior. That's not weakness. That's self-respect. It's knowing your value. It's refusing to let a moment of chaos define who you are or dictate how you behave. There will always be someone who tries to trigger you. That doesn't change. What changes is how much power you give them. When you practice the pause, you train yourself to break the cycle. You stop feeding the conflict. You stop replaying the scene in your head for hours. You stop giving your energy to people who don't deserve a piece of your peace. You become aware, calm, present. That's when real clarity shows up. And with clarity comes better choices, better boundaries, better outcomes. The pause is not just a delay, it's a decision. It's the moment you choose whether to let your past control you or to move from a higher place. That moment, over time, becomes your greatest habit. You catch yourself faster. You breathe deeper. You feel the rise, and instead of drowning in it, you stand still. Because you've learned that stillness is power. And the more you practice it, the more you realize you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You're not here to win arguments. You're here to protect your alignment. Every calm response is a victory. Every moment you pause instead of react, you're rewriting the story of who you are. You're no longer the person who gets pulled into drama. You're the one who chooses peace over chaos, power over panic, mastery over impulse. And in that space, you don't just survive the trigger, you rise above it. Because you are no longer led by emotion. You are led by intention. There's a powerful difference between reacting and responding. A reaction is quick, automatic, and emotional. It's driven by the unconscious mind, shaped by past wounds, insecurities, and unprocessed pain. It's what happens when someone says something sharp and your pride leaps to defend itself. When you're triggered and your ego takes over before your wisdom has a chance to speak. But a response is different. A response is deliberate. It's calm, grounded, and conscious. It's not about winning. It's about staying in control of your energy. And control doesn't mean suppression, it means clarity. Every time you react, you're giving the outside world authority over your inner state. You're saying, you get to decide how I feel. But every time you respond, you reclaim that authority. You send a message, not just to others, but to yourself, that your peace isn't fragile. It's not something that can be stolen by someone else's chaos. It's protected, guarded, built from within. That is the highest form of self-respect. Reacting feels good in the moment. It gives a surge of power, a flash of dominance, a sense of being right. But it always comes at a cost. Regret, guilt, unnecessary tension, a fractured image of yourself. Because deep down, you know that real strength doesn't scream, it doesn't lash out, it doesn't need to match anyone's energy. It holds itself steady, even when everything around it is shaking. And that steadiness, that quiet discipline, that's what separates those who lead from those who follow their emotions. When you choose to respond, you're not letting people walk over you. You're rising above the need to defend yourself in situations that don't deserve your presence. You're deciding that not every insult is worth your time. Not every glare needs your attention. Not every opinion should matter to your peace. That's power, the ability to choose how and when you show up. The wisdom to know when silence says more than words ever could. You are not here to play emotional ping pong with people who thrive on conflict. You are not here to be baited into battles that distract you from your growth. You are here to protect your energy, to move with intention, to choose what deserves your attention and what deserves your absence. You are here to stay rooted in your values, even when others try to shake them. You are here to be unshakable. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause, don't react, respond, or choose not to respond at all. Because even that is a response, one that says, I've outgrown this. And the more you do it, the more you prove to yourself that peace isn't found in what others say. It's found in how you choose to rise above it. Reactions are noise, responses are wisdom. Be the one who sees the difference. Be the one who leads with calm. That's where your true power lives. Calmness doesn't exist without boundaries. You cannot hold your peace if you don't protect it. People will cross lines, not because they are always malicious, but because they're testing your limits. And if you don't define those limits, the world will define them for you. Every time you let someone disrespect your space, your time, your energy, you send a silent message that you're willing to abandon your calm to avoid conflict. But peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the courage to guard your inner world, even when it means confronting what makes you uncomfortable. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks. You decide who gets access, who gets your attention, who earns your energy. Without boundaries, you'll feel drained, resentful, emotionally unstable. You'll spend your days cleaning up messes you didn't create. You'll feel pulled in every direction, constantly apologizing for choosing yourself. But calmness demands self-respect. And self-respect requires saying no, not with anger, but with clarity. Not with cruelty, but with certainty. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your time or your emotions. You don't have to explain your standards. You don't need permission to protect what you fought to build inside. People will not always like your boundaries. Some will push back. Some will guilt you. Some will call you selfish. But the truth is, the ones who resist your boundaries the hardest are usually the ones who benefited from your lack of them. Let that sink in. Because keeping your peace means being willing to disappoint others to stay aligned with yourself. It is not your job to absorb everyone else's chaos. It is not your responsibility to carry their emotional baggage. You can support people without sacrificing yourself. You can listen without being drained. You can care without becoming consumed. The moment you feel yourself shrinking to keep someone else comfortable, you're abandoning your calm for their approval. That's not peace. That's self-betrayal. And no external validation is worth losing your internal clarity. Calmness thrives in space. Space to breathe, space to feel, space to reset, and boundaries create that space. When you stop explaining your decisions and start honoring your truth, you shift from reactive to rooted. You no longer allow others to dictate your emotional climate. You become your own sanctuary, and that presence, grounded, calm, untouchable, is what separates people who are merely surviving from those who are powerfully self-led. Let your boundaries be a form of self-love. Let them speak without shouting. Let them protect without isolating. Let them remind the world that your peace is not up for negotiation. You didn't come this far just to hand your calm away every time someone gets too close. Stand tall in your standards, own your space, and know that every time you enforce a boundary, you're not just pushing others back, you're pulling your peace closer. That's the kind of strength that builds a life of calm no matter how loud the world becomes. Not everything others do is about you. Most of what people say, how they act, the energy they carry, it's a reflection of their own internal world. Their words are shaped by their experiences, their wounds, their fears. Their tone is often colored by stress you'll never see, battles you'll never know, and insecurities they've never faced. When someone lashes out, it's rarely because of you. It's because something inside them is loud, unresolved, or aching. And if you take it personally, you begin carrying pain that was never yours to hold. You free yourself when you stop personalizing other people's behavior. You find peace when you remember that their reactions are not always about your worth. They might misunderstand you. They might judge you through the lens of their own pain. They might speak to you from a place of fear, not truth. And none of it has to become your truth. You don't have to internalize what doesn't align with who you are. You don't have to absorb what was never meant for you. When you personalize everything, you hand over control. You let their words define your value. You let their mood shape your mindset. But when you pause and recognize what belongs to you versus what doesn't, you reclaim your center. You stop reacting to emotional projections. You stop losing yourself in someone else's storm. Not because you're ignoring it, but because you're rooted enough to stay separate from it. You can witness chaos and not become chaotic. You can be in the presence of negativity and still choose grace. Calmness is strengthened by detachment. Not emotional numbness, but clarity. The kind of clarity that lets you observe without attaching. That allows you to be compassionate without becoming consumed. That reminds you, just because someone is triggered doesn't mean you have to be. Just because someone's energy is heavy doesn't mean you must carry it. You can care deeply without being pulled under. You can be kind without being codependent. You can be present without being penetrated by every emotional shift around you. Your peace is not a reaction to others. It's a reflection of your own depth. The more you practice seeing things objectively, the less control the outside world has over your internal state. You rise above emotional manipulation. You stop shrinking to soothe others. You stop editing yourself to keep the peace and start owning your space to protect it. Every time someone tries to provoke you and you feel the pull to take it personally, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself if this belongs to you. If it doesn't, let it pass. Not everything needs your reaction. Not every opinion deserves your attention. And not every storm is yours to walk through. You are not here to carry the weight of others' projections. You are here to rise, grounded in truth, untouched by noise. Stay calm, not because they are right, but because you are clear. And in that clarity, nothing can shake you. The words you speak to yourself in silence shape the world you experience out loud. When someone tries to trigger you, the first battle isn't external, it's internal. It's the voice in your head that responds before your mouth ever opens. If that voice is filled with doubt, fear, or shame, you'll crumble. You'll react. You'll believe their words, take on their energy, and hand over your peace without even realizing it. But if your inner voice is rooted in truth, in strength, in calm understanding, nothing can shake you for long. Your inner dialogue becomes your emotional armor or your emotional prison. It either lifts you out of chaos or chains you to it. That's why calmness starts within, not around you. You can be in a peaceful environment and still be filled with turmoil. Or you can be surrounded by chaos and carry unshakable stillness if your mind is aligned. When your thoughts affirm your strength, when they remind you of who you are, when they hold you steady in moments of pressure, you stop being easy to provoke. You stop bending to every emotional wave that tries to pull you under. No one speaks to you more than you speak to yourself. So when the world gets loud, your inner voice must be louder. Not in volume, but in clarity, in truth, in grounded certainty. It must remind you of your growth, of how far you've come, of how you faced storms before and made it through. It must remind you that someone else's opinion does not rewrite your worth. That someone else's chaos does not define your stability. That what happens around you does not have to become what lives within you. The power to stay calm lives in the words you silently choose. When you say to yourself, I don't need to respond to this. I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to match their energy. You're stepping into a higher level of emotional maturity. You're not running from the moment. You're rising above it. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing. Not out of fear, but out of knowing. Not from weakness, but from mastery. Your thoughts are the gatekeepers of your peace. Guard them. Shape them. Speak to yourself with the same strength you long to show the world. Let your internal voice be your calm in the noise. Let it be your guide when others try to lead you into emotional chaos. Let it be the anchor that keeps you steady when everything around you pushes for a reaction. Because once your inner world is steady, the outside world loses its power. You don't have to silence the world. You only have to train the voice that speaks within you. Do that, and calmness will follow you wherever you go. Not as a performance, but as who you are. Not just in quiet moments, but especially when everything around you tries to pull you out of yourself. Stay grounded in that voice. It is your strength. You owe no one your reaction. You owe no one your peace. The world will try to provoke you, test you, tempt you into becoming what you've outgrown, but you don't have to shrink to fit that mold again. You've done too much work to go backwards now. You fought too hard to rebuild yourself. Every time someone pushes you to break, it's an invitation to remember your strength, not surrender it. It's a test of who you've decided to become when no one's watching, when no one's applauding, when it's just you and the pressure pressing in. In those moments, your silence is power. Your composure is strength. Your restraint is proof of growth. People will try to make their chaos your responsibility. Don't accept the offer. Just because someone is loud doesn't mean they're right. Just because someone is aggressive doesn't mean they're strong. Real power is quiet. It doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove. It doesn't need to win every argument to feel secure. The calmest person in the room always controls the energy, because calmness is presence. Calmness is self-control. Calmness is the discipline to stay centered in who you are, no matter what storm tries to pull you off course. There's a difference between reacting and responding. Reactions are impulsive. They come from fear, from wounds, from the need to defend an ego that still feels threatened. Responses are intentional. They come from wisdom, from healing, from clarity. When you react, you give others the script to your emotions. But when you respond, you write your own. And the more you practice responding from a place of calm, the less control others have over your inner world. The ability to stay calm under pressure is not weakness. It's not passivity. It's power in its purest form. It's emotional intelligence. It's the art of navigating conflict without letting it damage your core. It's choosing peace over performance. When someone comes at you with negativity and you meet them with grace, that is transformation. That is leadership. That is emotional freedom. You're not rising above them to feel superior. You're rising above because your peace is too sacred to be sacrificed for a moment of ego. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to match someone's chaos just to feel heard. You don't need to stoop to the level of every insult, every provocation, every outburst. Your value is not measured by how loud you can shout back. It's measured by how powerfully you can stay centered in your truth when the noise tries to drown you. This is how you protect your energy. This is how you master yourself. Not by controlling the world, but by refusing to let the world control you. The more you choose calmness, the stronger it becomes. And the stronger it becomes, the less you fear the triggers, because you know they cannot move what you've made immovable inside you. Not every battle is meant to be fought. Some are meant to be observed, understood, and walked away from. The one who stays calm while everything around them shakes is not avoiding conflict. They're mastering it from within. You don't rise by clashing with everything that seeks your attention. You rise by learning to preserve your energy, by choosing when to engage and when to let the silence speak for you. Silence is not submission. Silence is not defeat. Silence is strategy. And in a world that feeds off reactions, silence becomes your shield. The moment you choose not to respond, not to retaliate, not to be pulled into someone else's emotional chaos, you become untouchable. There is strength in not needing to be understood by everyone. There is power in no longer explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to prove your worth to people who thrive on diminishing it. You don't need to correct every lie, every jab, every passive-aggressive comment. When you know who you are, that knowledge becomes your protection. Let them speak. Let them misunderstand. Let them throw stones made of insecurity. You don't need to catch them. You don't need to crumble. You rise by standing still, rooted in truth, anchored in emotional maturity. Real calmness is not pretending you're unbothered. It's knowing exactly what could bother you and still choosing peace anyway. It's recognizing your triggers, owning them, and choosing not to let them dictate your behavior. When someone presses your buttons and gets no reaction, you've taken back your power. You are no longer dancing to the rhythm of emotional manipulation. You are no longer volunteering for the chaos of others. That is the kind of power that cannot be seen, but it can always be felt. When you learn to stay calm in a storm, you stop fearing the storm. When you master the art of stillness, life stops feeling like a battlefield. You don't shrink, you don't run, you don't explode. You breathe, you center. You watch the storm, and you stay grounded in yourself. That is emotional sovereignty. That is psychological growth. That is freedom from the chains of impulsive reactivity. The moment you no longer allow external energy to hijack your inner state, you unlock a new level of strength most never reach. You are not obligated to match chaos with chaos. You are not required to mirror disrespect. Your peace is not a gift to be handed over in the heat of provocation. Keep it guarded. Keep it sacred. Let others throw fire if they must, but you don't have to burn with them. Let your calm be the fire they can't touch. Let your stillness be the answer they never saw coming. There is nothing more intimidating than a person who cannot be provoked because their peace is no longer situational. It is chosen. And what is chosen cannot be stolen. Calmness is not weakness. It is the ultimate proof of strength. Anyone can scream. Anyone can react. Anyone can let their emotions spill in every direction when they feel attacked. But it takes unshakable discipline to pause, to breathe, and to remain composed when every nerve is begging to retaliate. That pause is where your transformation lives. That breath is where you reclaim your power. That silence is where you rise above the noise. And in that moment, you are no longer controlled by the outside world. You are led by your inner wisdom. You have shifted from reaction to intention, from chaos to clarity. When you realize that not everything deserves your energy, you stop bleeding for battles that do not build you. You stop handing over your mental peace to temporary frustrations. You begin to see the cost of every reaction. And when the price is your peace, you choose differently. You grow, you evolve. You distance yourself not out of fear, but out of mastery. You choose your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. Your inner world determines the quality of your outer world. What you feed internally echoes into every word, every action, every decision. So you guard your energy not with force, but with awareness. You stay calm not because they deserve it, but because you do. The ones who try to trigger you are often the most troubled. Their chaos is a projection, not a truth. And when you internalize their storm, you betray your own balance. You owe it to yourself to rise above their frequency. You owe it to your future to not be trapped in cycles of emotional warfare. You owe it to your growth to hold your center when everything else tries to pull you off balance. That is the warrior's path. Not loud, not aggressive, but disciplined, focused, and unbreakable from within. The strongest response is sometimes no response. The most powerful movement is sometimes standing still. Every time you choose calm over conflict, you prove to yourself that you are in control. You train your nervous system to no longer collapse at tension. You build mental muscles that keep you grounded in storms. This is not suppression. This is transmutation. You are not running from emotion. You are owning it, processing it, and choosing your response with precision. That is evolution. That is maturity. That is power. You don't calm the world by shouting at it. You calm it by becoming the calm. You lead by example. You shift the energy of the room by holding your own. Keep rising with silence. Keep choosing peace with conviction. Let your calm presence speak louder than any argument ever could. Let your restraint speak of your strength. Let your stillness echo with the force of unshakable self-control. You are no longer reactive. You are intentional. And in that shift, you become untouchable. Not because you fought harder, but because you mastered the one battle that matters most, the one within. Staying calm when others try to trigger you is not just about peace. It's about power. It's about reclaiming the throne of your own mind. It's about refusing to be a puppet pulled by the strings of chaos. Because the moment you let someone else's words dictate your emotional state, you hand over your crown. You surrender your strength to someone who feeds on reaction. But you were not born to obey the noise of others. You were born to rise above it. To stand so deeply rooted in self-control that no storm can shake you loose. This is not detachment. This is elevation. It's choosing to operate from purpose rather than impulse. It's choosing to respond from clarity rather than confusion. It's choosing to protect your energy like sacred ground, because that's exactly what it is. Let them throw their fire. Let them speak in anger. Let them try to pull you into the storm. You do not belong in the storm. You are the eye of it. Calm, centered, unmoved. You do not engage in petty wars because you are building empires within yourself. You are no longer desperate to prove anything to anyone. You are no longer emotionally bankrupt. You are whole. And from that wholeness comes silence. From that silence comes precision. From that precision comes power. And true power is quiet. It does not need to yell. It does not need to argue. It simply exists, undeniable, unshakable, unbothered. People who try to trigger you are testing your boundaries, not because they're strong, but because they are lost in their own weakness. And your peace threatens them. Your silence offends them. Your composure reveals their chaos. But their projections are not your responsibility. Their anger is not your burden. Your only responsibility is to remain in control of you. No one gets to live rent-free in your mind unless you give them the key. And the more you elevate, the more you realize that not every insult needs an answer. Not every conflict deserves your participation. Some things are better left unanswered because your peace speaks volumes without uttering a word. Train yourself to pause, to breathe, to observe without absorbing. Let your awareness become your shield. Let your discipline become your defense. Let your self-mastery become your response. You do not rise by fighting every battle. You rise by walking away from the ones that drain you. You rise by conserving your energy for what truly matters. And when you do that consistently, your calm becomes unbreakable. It becomes a force. It becomes your identity, not passive, not weak, but dangerously poised. Intimidating in its grace, ferocious in its restraint, that is who you are becoming. And with each choice to stay calm, with each moment you refuse to be triggered, you step deeper into your power. You stop reacting. You start leading, not others, yourself. And in mastering yourself, you become unstoppable. When you choose not to react, you shift the entire balance of power. You stop dancing to the beat of someone else's dysfunction. You break the pattern. You interrupt the cycle. And that silence you hold is not empty. It's full of authority. It's full of boundaries. It's full of a quiet message that says, I do not shrink for chaos. I do not bend for drama. I do not engage with immaturity. That is strength. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that stands. Calm is not the absence of emotion. It's the presence of wisdom. It's knowing that not everything deserves your energy, your time, or your peace of mind. When you grow to understand this, you start filtering the world differently. You become deliberate. You become intentional. You start asking yourself one simple question, is this worth my peace? And most of the time, the answer is no. People will test you to measure your self-control, but their noise is just that, noise. You don't need to raise your voice to rise in power. You don't need to clap back to prove your value. True confidence isn't proven in chaos, it's proven in stillness. The one who controls their emotions controls the room. Because when you master the way you respond, you disarm every attempt to pull you down. You don't stoop. You don't retaliate. You observe. You understand. And you rise above. That level of self-mastery doesn't come from ego. It comes from clarity. You don't allow your mind to be hijacked by temporary feelings or other people's projections. You stay anchored. You stay rooted in who you are. Calm is your superpower because it keeps you from being manipulated. It shields you from emotional traps. It protects you from acting out of character. You don't owe anyone a reaction. You don't have to explain your silence. You don't need to justify your peace. Let people wonder why you didn't respond. Let them sit with their own noise. You owe yourself more than you owe their expectations. Because every time you stay calm, you reclaim your energy. You reclaim your dignity. You remind yourself that you are in control now. Not your past, not your pain, not your triggers. You. Growth feels like restraint. It feels like walking away when you want to fight. It feels like choosing silence when chaos begs for a response. It feels like breathing when your chest is tight with anger. But that is the work. That is the discipline. That is the path to becoming someone who cannot be shaken by the noise of this world. You don't just stay calm to keep the peace. You stay calm to protect the power you've built within. And when that power becomes permanent, nothing can shake it loose. Not people, not pressure, not pain. You walk through the fire and you don't burn because you've learned to master the one thing that most never do, yourself.